Hey everybody, this is just a quick tutorial about how our workflow works for the Notes project. So this is Trello, and on Trello here there is a lot of sort of columns, and everything that basically all of our stuff flows from the leftmost column eventually to the rightmost column, which is done over here. So that's the progression, and the further stuff gets along in these columns, the further it is down the pipeline. So when you first arrive here, you'll see there's this Get Started card, and you can access it by just clicking on this Trello card right here. And it'll be like, welcome, it'll say step 1, read through our Osmosis Notes and Writing Guide, which is located right here attached to the card. Step 2, watch how this video Trello board works. Well, you're already doing that right now, so there'll be a link here to this video that I'm currently recording on step 2. Step 3 will be assign yourself to a Trello card and move it to the sprint column, and then step 4 will be start writing. So let's just sort of talk about how this will go. So let's say that I would like to work on the cardiovascular anatomy and physiology notes thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it, open the card up. I see that there's a Google Doc here already attached, and I'm going to click on members, and I'm the only member right now in this, but I'll be inviting all of you soon. So I'm going to click on myself. You'll see that my little image here has popped up, and then on the card itself over here, it shows my image here as well. So this is how we know people are assigned to a particular card. I will then bring it over into the sprint column, because this is what I'm actively working on. And the sprint column essentially is just a 2-week period of time. So normally you would say sprint, and it'll be like, August 25th to September the 7th or something like that. I don't actually know. I'm just making this up right now. But normally there's a date here. And basically what we are asking you to do is at the beginning of a sprint, say on October the 25th, we'll send a big email. I'll send a big email out to everybody saying, hey, we're in a new sprint. I would like you to put your Trello cards in here. And so on October the 25th, you're just going to assign yourself to a few of these Trello cards, and you're going to drag them into the sprint column. And what that means is you're saying by the end of the sprint on September the 7th, you believe you will have completed all of the Trello cards that you have dragged into the sprint. So right now, what mine is showing is that by September the 7th, I believe I can complete one note, and that's it. So basically, it's just a time estimation column. You're saying, I can complete this much work within this 2-week period that's in the sprint. I would like to ask you, when you are figuring out how much work you can do, be more conservative with your estimates. So if you're like, I think I can get like 4 or 5 done, but like I'm not 100% sure, I would rather you lowball it and say you can do 3. And then if you finish early, you can always drag more in later during the sprint. But what I don't want to happen is there be a bunch of Trello cards of like, oh yeah, I think I can do 4 or 5, and then you end up only being able to do 2 or 3, and then we have all these extra cards that are still hanging around in the sprint column after the sprint is over. So just be conservative with your estimates, and whatever you put in the sprint column, like make sure that you try to get that done for sure within the 2-week period. Okay, you can always add stuff in later. Okay, so let's say that this is my sprint. This is the one I'm working on. We see that there's already a Google document in here, so we're going to click on the Google Doc, and every single card will have a Google Doc. If it does not, please let me know directly. I do not want you making your own Google Docs and attaching them to the Trello card. You have to use the Google Docs that are already in the Trello card. Long story short, it's a permissions problem. If it becomes very hard for the multiple people working on this project to be constantly having to request permissions. So I make all the Google Docs, so I control the permissions so that it's easy to allow everybody to see it whenever we need it to. Okay, so here's the Google Doc. This is what the template looks like, and essentially you're just going to start writing in here. Okay, cool. So let's say you finished making your notes. And it's ready to be reviewed. So you've looked over it a couple times yourself, you're pleased with it, you're going to drag it over into the internal review Peggy column. Peggy is a person, or a lovely person, who has done a lot of the hard work at helping us set up the first few notes, specifically in pathology. And so she's kind of our leading expert on how these notes are going to work. So she's going to review your notes and give you feedback in the form of comments, and then maybe just add a couple little things here and there just to fix them up a bit. But overall, what she's doing is she's giving you feedback so you can fix up the notes and learn how to make notes better as you do more and more of them. So once she has reviewed and given you comments as feedback, she's going to put it in the author review 1 column. And that just means that this is now a column that it's telling you that you need to fix these notes up based off her feedback. So you're going to go through, address all of her feedback, and when you've done so, you're actually going to drag it backwards back into the internal review column. Peggy's going to look at it again, and then she'll either give you more feedback to try and get your notes up to par, or she will drag it herself over to the faculty review column. You will never drag it over to faculty review. That only can be done by Peggy. Okay, so let's say it gets to faculty review. Then we're going to be sending the notes out to some faculty members that we are in partnership with who are from various universities, and they're going to look over it and they're going to give you more comments. And it's usually going to be on the lines of like lumping and splitting of like, I think this should go here, or they'll be saying, you know, this is factually incorrect, or this isn't up to date, or nobody uses this anymore, or things of that nature. So they've been incredibly helpful thus far. And they're very excited to see the work you do, but they will give lots of feedback as well. Same thing will happen here. They will review your stuff and they'll drag it into the author review column 2, and that's when you'll have to fix stuff up. Once you finish fixing stuff up from the author review column 2, you're going to drag it back to the faculty review again, and they will look over it a second time, and hopefully on the second time they're good with it and they'll pass it off. What we've asked is that the faculty review it once and give lots of feedback, and then the second time is mostly them just double checking there isn't any sort of outstanding issues. If there are, you'll need to fix those up too, and they'll drag it back to author review. And then when you're finished doing the author review again, you drag it back here. So faculty are only able to drag it to copy editing. So you will never be dragging it over to copy editing. But the hope is that we're going to get you through the faculty review within 1 review, maybe 2 if needed, especially at the beginning. There might need to be a couple more. So once it ends up in copy editing, you're good. You're done with this. We'll then send this to a copy editor to make sure that there isn't any additional grammar or punctuation problems, and then we will put it into a pretty design by our designers, and then it'll be done. And it'll be uploaded to our website or added to the book that we're making. So that's kind of like what happens through all this. So we'll bring this all the way back here. Okay, so now that you know how the Trello board works and how it flows, definitely ask me some questions if you have questions on that. I just really want to show you quickly what these mega grids look like. So when you're doing physiology content, we're going to be referencing that you use the physiology mega grid. So you can find it here under spreadsheets. You're going to click on it. It'll bring you to this document right here. And so this looks a bit chaotic. It actually makes a lot of sense, trust me. First off, look here at the bottom. You've got a bunch of tabs. These are organ systems, and these are various spreadsheets. So right now we are on the cardiovascular organ system. You can switch it to renal. Now you'll see renal content. Respiratory, you'll see respiratory content. Cool. So let's go back to cardiovascular. What you're seeing here in these columns is basically just categorization of where our stuff, a hierarchy of categorization. So all of this falls under cardiovascular, right? All of this follows under physiology of cardiovascular, right? That makes sense too. These two are the ones that are going to interest you the most. So column C is topic, and that is actually going to be the names of your Trello cards. So we'll see, if we go back here, you'll see for the most part, like hemodynamics is here in column C. Cardiac electrophysiology is also here in column C. The exceptions being anatomy and physiology. There's so much content that has to be covered within each of these individual sort of concepts here in column D that have actually made them their own separate Trello card. So column C is basically like a categorization of this stuff that's in column D, which is sort of like, these are individual videos. So we have a video on cardiovascular anatomy and physiology. We have a video on lymphatic anatomy and whatnot. So these are all individual videos, and we're trying to make notes for these videos, but we're not making a one-to-one, each video gets one note. We're collectively combining a bunch of videos into a single package of notes. So the videos blood pressure, blood flow, and blood resistance, all the way to pressures in the cardiovascular system, all of this falls under hemodynamics, and this is going to be one note just on hemodynamics that incorporates all of this. I hope that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, definitely ask me, but that's essentially what it is. Column C is the notes, minus a couple exceptions, and column D is the videos that cover that, or the topics that are covered within those notes. Now, column E here is interesting because we have essentially gone through a bunch of resources for you and determined where you should be looking to pull this information from. So if you're doing hemodynamics, for example, you can see in column E here we have Costanzo textbook. And we say, okay, we want you to cover the content from page 237 to 242, and then here is a bunch of the titles that we definitely want you to cover here. So what that means is you're going to open up the Costanzo textbook, which is linked in the script writing text, the script writing guide, or the notes writing guide that I provided you. And you're going to go to these pages and you're going to read through it, and you're going to start making notes based off the content that's within those pages. So because the hemodynamics notes cover a few of these topics, a few of these videos, you'll see that the notes will need to cover all the pages that are sort of covered here in Costanzo. So this is the Costanzo textbook. For physiology, most of your stuff is going to come from the Costanzo textbook. And everything that's covered in the Costanzo textbook, for the most part, should be reflected somehow in the notes. We're then going to scroll a little bit over here. You'll see there's a second textbook called Marieb, and essentially what we're asking for you to do here is a different textbook. It has sometimes different information and a lot of overlapping information. We just want you to skim through the page numbers in Marieb and just double check that no important information was missed. And what is important information, that's up to you to decide. What is this stuff important for a medical student to know as they're studying in med school. Okay, so that's that. Again, if none of this makes sense, please just let me know, and I'm more than willing to go over this with you, because this entire process is important on how to read this spreadsheet and how your notes, how to start building your notes from the page numbers in the spreadsheet. A lot of this content is covered also within the actual notes writing guide, which is available here. You click on it, you'll go to it, and you'll find not only the PDFs for the resources that we're talking about, the textbooks, but it also explains how everything's broken down and whatnot. And just as a final aside, before I let you go, this is not for public distribution. Everything within this guide, as well as the guide itself, contains copyrighted information and only can be used within the project that you're working on with us. All right, thank you so much, and I'm really excited to work with you guys. Take care.